The morning of my wedding, I woke up in a quiet hotel suite with a view of the river. The sun was pouring in through the blinds, casting gold across the dress I'd spent months saving for. My heart should have been pounding with excitement, but instead, it beat heavy with an ache I couldn't shake. My parents weren't coming. Not because of an accident, not because of illness, not because of some emergency. They had called the night before, casually, like it was nothing, to let me know they'd be busy. Busy, as in taking my brother's golden retriever, Buttons, to a spa groomer an hour out of town. "Sweetheart," my mom said over the phone, "you know how anxious Buttons gets when he's not on his regular schedule. Your brother already booked the appointment. We can't just cancel." I thought she was joking. I waited for the punchline. I waited for her to laugh and say, "Of course we're coming, baby." But it never came. I hung up without saying goodbye. My fiancé, Nathan, tried to cheer me up that morning, whispering how today was about us, how we were creating our own family now. And he was right. But when I walked down the aisle and saw the empty seats where my parents should have been, seats I had intentionally reserved front and center, it hit me harder than I expected. They weren't just skipping my wedding. They were choosing fur over flesh, a dog over their daughter. And the worst part? This wasn't new. I had always been second to my brother. Ryan was the golden boy, the captain of the debate team, the recipient of the family trust fund, the one who crashed my car in college and got me grounded for it. He could do no wrong. I, on the other hand, was dramatic, overly sensitive, and always competing. They'd skipped my college graduation to fly to one of Ryan's weekend regattas. They forgot my birthday once because they were helping him set up his apartment. And when I got my first book published, a memoir ironically titled Uninvited, they said they didn't read those kinds of books. So, in a twisted way, them missing my wedding felt like the final inevitable punchline to a lifetime of quiet rejection. But even so, I hadn't expected it to hurt quite so much. When the ceremony ended, guests clapped, and I smiled through it. Photos were taken, toasts were made, and the night glittered on. Nathan's family embraced me like their own. Friends danced and laughed, but a part of me had fractured, and that crack wasn't going to heal with just champagne and a sparkler exit. When I returned to the hotel that night, I opened social media, and there it was, a picture my mom had proudly posted. Buttons, freshly groomed with a stupid little bow around his neck. Captioned, "Our handsome boy had a big day at the spa. Family first, dog mom." My hands shook as I stared at the screen. My wedding day? And that was their idea of a family priority? Something in me snapped. I had spent my life trying to be seen, trying to earn their pride, their presence, their basic human decency. But they had chosen their side, again. And I was done asking to be chosen. That night, I looked at Nathan and said 6 words I never thought I'd say. "I think it's time for payback." He didn't even flinch. He just said, "Tell me what you need." And that was the beginning of something I never expected, something they would never forget. A week after the wedding, my inbox pinged with a formal email from my mother, a polite 2-paragraph excuse laced with fake remorse. "We're so sorry we couldn't attend, darling. You know how much we love you, but we had commitments. Hope the wedding was lovely. Do send pictures." Commitments? I couldn't even muster a reply. What they didn't know was that I had quietly recorded all my calls with them for over a year. Every snide remark, every moment they forgot about me, every time they said something like, "Ryan is the one who'll carry the family forward," or "You don't really need us at your events. You're so independent." I had kept them as emotional receipts, not for revenge, just for proof, for myself. But now, those receipts had a purpose. Nathan and I were both creatives. He worked in indie film, and I was a published author. Together, we decided to turn those moments into a script, a short film, a deeply personal, lightly fictionalized story about a daughter forgotten at her own wedding by parents who prioritized their son's dog. We called it The Empty Seat. We crowdfunded quietly through friends, art groups, and Nathan's filmmaker circle. Within months, we had a crew. We filmed scenes inspired by real moments, my high school recital they skipped, the voicemail where they blamed me for not being grateful, the actual wedding scene with 2 front-row seats left untouched. And when it was done, we submitted it to indie film festivals. We didn't tell anyone it was autobiographical. It was just a story, but somehow it struck a nerve. It went viral. The rawness, the emotional weight, the final scene where the bride stares into the camera and says, "I've stopped waiting for applause that was never mine." Audiences wept, shared, talked. The story exploded on YouTube, then Hulu picked it up in a short docuseries spotlight. Suddenly, I was being interviewed as the voice for the forgotten daughter. And that's when my parents found out. They were humiliated, not just because the film was about them, but because people saw themselves in it. Strangers commented things like, "My parents did this too. This is my life. I needed this story." It wasn't revenge anymore. It was vindication. It was poetic justice with a standing ovation. Then came the kicker. A week after the Hulu release, I got a call from my cousin Rachel. "Did you hear? Your mom tried to get you disinvited from Grandpa's will reading, said you were too dramatic and might make a scene." That's when I knew the inheritance rumors were true. My grandfather had passed and the estate was being split. So I showed up. I wore a black pantsuit, no makeup, walked in with my head high. My parents glared. "You shouldn't be here," my father said, voice low. "Why?" I asked. "Worried I'll tell the lawyer what really happened at the wedding?" The reading began, and just as expected, they had convinced Grandpa months earlier to leave most of the estate to Ryan, but what they didn't count on was the codicil Grandpa added. Apparently, Grandpa did see my wedding invitation, and when he learned my parents missed it, he was furious. Quietly, 2 weeks before his death, he amended his will, leaving his private writing cabin and personal library of rare books to me, along with $50,000. "Because she always told the truth," the lawyer read aloud, even when no one wanted to hear it. My mother gasped. I didn't even smile. I just said, "Tell Buttons I said thanks." Without him, this never would have happened. After the will reading, I didn't say a word to my parents. I didn't need to. Their silence said everything. Their faces, stiff with confusion, pride cracked, and egos bruised, were the apology I knew I'd never get in words. And that was enough for now. But I wasn't finished. A month later, The Empty Seat was nominated for a National Film Award in the short-form documentary category. Nathan and I were flown to Los Angeles for the ceremony. The red carpet, the flashing lights. The same girl who once stood alone in a thrifted dress at her own wedding now stood under the glow of cameras, hailed as a truth-teller for an entire generation that knew what it felt like to be forgotten by family. And that's when it happened. I spotted them, my parents, in the audience, front row. They had bought tickets, probably scalped them for an absurd amount. And there they were, seated together in formal wear, desperate to be seen supporting their now famous daughter. The same parents who told me I was overreacting when they skipped my wedding for Ryan's dog's grooming appointment now wanted to be photographed applauding my success. As we took the stage for our nomination, the MC announced, "The Empty Seat," written by Elise Grant, based on real events. A collective murmur rippled through the audience. My mother flinched. Then the camera panned to them, and I made sure to walk across that stage without a glance in their direction. After the ceremony, I received dozens of congratulations, hugs, and interviews. But one moment stood out. A girl, maybe 14, glasses slightly crooked, trembling, walked up to me with her mother behind her. "Thank you," she whispered. "Your film." It felt like it was about me. My parents say I'm too sensitive too, but now I know I'm not broken. I crouched down, took her hand and said, "You're not sensitive. You're awake. Never let them turn that into a weakness." That was the closure I didn't know I needed. And then the twist. 2 days later, I received a certified letter. It was from Ryan. He had watched the film. He'd read the Reddit threads, the online essays, the viral TikToks about the story. And for the first time in his life, he realized that he had been the golden boy at the expense of someone else's pain. "I didn't see it before," he wrote, "but I see it now. I'm sorry. And Mom and Dad, they'll never change, but maybe I still can. If you ever want a brother, not the version I was before, but someone real, I'll be here." I didn't cry, but I did reply, "Thank you. I don't need you to fix the past. Just don't be another part of what broke it." 1 month later, my parents emailed me. Subject line, "Can we meet? We're sorry." I didn't open it. Instead, I took my grandfather's library key, walked to the cabin, and unlocked the door for the first time. Dust danced in shafts of golden light. Every book smelled of ink and legacy. A writing desk faced a tall window overlooking the trees. On the table sat a letter, addressed to me. From Grandpa. "I always knew you were different, Elise. Different isn't bad. It's rare. Keep telling the stories no one else will, especially the ones that hurt." I framed that letter, and I smiled. Because in the end, I didn't need revenge. I had something better, legacy.